webinar series. My name is Michelle Mott, and this month we are excited about a new program. Actually, it's more of a process to tell you about called Serve Up, the 7 Qualities of a Collaborative Culture. Many of you are joining us for the first time, so I want to make sure that everybody has an enjoyable learning experience. If you have any technical difficulties, my Wizard of Oz, aka Dana, geez, I always come up with Dana. Dana at 515-221-2688 is standing by if you have any technical difficulties. But for starters, let me give you a little bit of an overview of this platform. Webex has some controls that you can zoom in and zoom out depending on how many people are watching. So if you're watching by yourself, it may not be as much of a deal, but if you're watching with a group, many of our clients are telling us that they're putting groups together to watch this on the big screen. So feel free to play around with the size. The content viewer is the main section that shows the slides. I won't be showing videos in this particular month's webinar, but oftentimes that's the main screen. And then off to the right-hand side, we're going to have some fun. You can look and see who's all registered or who's signed in, and there's also a chat box. And in the chat box is a place where you can actually type in a message. If you send it to all participants or all attendees, where you have to try to figure out which one is which, then type in a message, and then you can send it out for everyone's viewing pleasure. And I'm going to be asking some questions along the way, and feel free to share your comments for everybody's view. All right, so a little bit about Inspiring Solutions. The best way I can tell you is to go out to our new updated website. It looks awesome. You will find at inspiringsolutions.com an overview of the products and programs that we offer to enhance individual, team, and organizational performance. And we believe our mission is to improve the attitudes and actions of today's workplace. And we do that through a variety of different talent development trainings and workshops and processes, including leadership, service skills, and team building. The goals, however, for this hour is we use these monthly webinars to sprinkle some motivation to our clients and prospective clients for them to learn more about some of the other products and programs that we offer. The one that we've decided to offer for this particular month is going to explore the dynamics of today's workplace, understand the 7 qualities of a collaborative culture, and I'm even going to share with you some of the variety of best practices that I've been working with, helping to create, as well as those that my clients have created. And I really think about this whole Serve Up as a process to ignite a culture of excellence. To guide us through our webinar, there are a couple of handouts that were given to you. There is the Serve Up handout that has the worksheets and exercises that will involve you with. There are 2 program descriptions that tell you a little bit more about this process and how you can bring it to your organization. And then at the back of the handout is our webinar schedule for the rest of the year. After leaving or closing out, you'll be asked to complete a brief survey. And if you would, please take it upon yourself to spend maybe a couple minutes letting us know what you thought about this platform. We're kind of trying to figure out if 60 minutes is the magical time, or if that's too much time. We would love your input if you think it should be 30, 45 minutes, or what we've been doing is 60 minutes. So we are open to suggestions. As I mentioned, we do these webinars twice a month. So we just finished the 9 o'clock hour. It was awesome. I don't expect anything different than for this group. But we offer twice so that if there was somebody that didn't have a chance to get to the first hour, they could join us in the second hour. You can go out to our website and click on the registration, and you can register for some or all of the upcoming webinar schedules. And Dana will send out, usually the week of the webinar, the final instructions, handouts to copy for yourself or others. But we really want this to be a wonderful opportunity to further develop your talent, and we appreciate those of you that have already passed our invitations. on to coworkers. So once a month, we'll also early on send out an overview of there's an article that talks about the topic of the month, and then there'll be invitations that go out directly to the webinars. And so feel free to pass those along the way. So let's go ahead and begin. Turn into your workbook for a definition of what is collaboration. Collaboration is when two or more people or departments work together to produce, create, or achieve something successfully. So it could be a technically related project, it could be a customer-focused project, it could be your organizational effectiveness. So we're going to talk about it from the standpoint of using your resources, recognizing and rewarding when facing competition for finite resources. Your organization has limited resources, budgets, people. Each day you have a limited time to maximize your team's effectiveness. When you do collaborate, you'll find that there's a great spirit of cooperation, teamwork, and that does require a degree of cohesive leadership. And as a result, I think every organization that I've worked with that has a high level of collaboration has mutual respect for one another. They recognize the talents and offer challenges or opportunities to maximize those individuals' talents and with mutual appreciation. Some advantages of collaboration. The benefit of having a collaborative culture is that you obtain mutual resolution, and typically as people participate in the decision-making process or of change, they gain a great commitment to the change or the decision. However, it can be time-consuming because it does take participation from other people. So let's talk about culture in the workplace. Culture, by definition, is the dynamics of a workplace created from its stakeholders. So it's all of those people that come together in the workplace, such as employees, leaders, and then ultimately your customers. It tends to set the mood or the tone for the customer experience, and oftentimes I can tell as a consultant what the culture feels like just as I'm walking into an organization's business or a building, because do people interact with one another? Are they happy? Are they having fun? Are they focused, or are they kind of misusing their time? The culture in today's workplace is impacted by a lot of differences. Differences is age, gender, profession, skill sets. And I like to start with the foundation of organizations with an understanding of your current culture. And we're going to talk about an assessment here in a minute. But what I'd like you to do, if you've got folks that are standing with you, after you sign off from this webinar, an exercise I would encourage you to do is how would you describe your culture, the good, the bad, and the ugly, based on what we talk about during this webinar. I find that there are three different types of cultures, and we're going to talk about each of them, and depending on the style of leadership, sets the tone for the employees. For instance, a culture of control means that leaders and managers tend to operate with a lot of mistrust and suspicion. In other words, they doubt people follow through with assignments. There's poor follow through, and therefore people tend not to believe in people's commitments or promises. Also, leaders tend to monitor closely tasks, kind of like the micromanager, where they're looking over the shoulders of their employees, and dictate decisions. They don't give employees a voice in decisions. As a result of that, it creates a culture of dependence. So typically employees in this culture turn off their brains at the door and just kind of wait for management to tell them what to do, how to do it, and make the decisions for them. It tends to deliver a very mediocrity product. The second culture is that of abandonment. And here is, once you hire an employee, you think your job is done. So you hire them and then you turn them loose without any degree of accountability, giving them clear expectations. You don't give them clear direction or an understanding of what's expected of them. And typically there's no consequences for low or poor performance. As a result of this type of leadership, there's a lot of chaos. There's very little teamwork because no one pulls the team together. And it tends to create independence, where individuals or departments work in isolation of each other. The culture that we strive to help our clients achieve is that of collaboration. That's when you recognize and utilize your people's skills, knowledge, and their desires, which means everybody comes to the first day on the job with some knowledge, whether they've learned at school or in previous jobs. They come together with skills, technical, communication skills, leadership skills. And hopefully they have the internal desire, or what we call the passion, to make a difference. And it's because of that type of leadership style, you have an interdependent and collaborative culture that allows and promotes mutual success. David Amerlin said that collaboration is the new competition, and I really think that that's true. It doesn't matter what you produce or what you serve to your customers, it's the how factor that really makes the difference. Are people enjoying working with your organization, and are people enjoying coming or doing business with you? In today's workplace, we have a very diverse workplace, and that's because 4 generations are oftentimes represented. On your handout is a synopsis of a report that if you're interested, reach out, call or email Dana, and she will send it to you. It describes the 4 different generations and their differences. And we're going to give you just an overview of them today, the traditionalists, the baby boomers, the Gen X, and the millennials. And I'll ask you to think about where is that you fit and how accurate are these descriptions. So believe it or not, we still have some folks, and many times they're volunteers or they've retired and they've come back to the workplace, that fit into the category of traditionalists. They value family, and I will say family-like. I say that because many times they come back to work because maybe they're alone and they want to feel like work is a degree of their family. They focus on quality. They take great pride in the work they do, and they want others to take that same type of pride. They want hierarchy, which means they want to know who reports to who and who am I accountable to. And they're motivated by security. They want to know that if they do a good job, they will have a job security. They want the workplace to be recognized. They want to be recognized for their years of experience, their knowledge, their life stories. They want to be respected because they have earned a career and it's worthy of noting. And if you are working with traditionalists, make sure that you give them discreet and professional communication. They have a different workplace ethic than oftentimes our younger folks. The next category are baby boomers, and I fit into one of these categories. And this generation values success. They work hard. They oftentimes play hard. They unfortunately work long hours, which means they typically don't quit when the day is done, which does tend to affect their family life. They do want equality, so for what you contribute, they want to make sure that it's based on or the decisions are made fairly. And baby boomers tend to be motivated by money. They equate that money is a recognition of their success. Therefore, they can be more materialistic than some of the younger populations, so they tend to buy things or do things because they've earned it, or that's what their success has led to. They want work to be a place where they can shine, show their talents. They want to make a difference, and therefore, if you are communicating with us baby boomers, allow some personal communication. They are more likely to pick up the phone and call you, or they're more likely to make a sales call face-to-face than use technology. Generation are those that are the Gen X's. These folks value the time, quality time, probably because they've seen mom and dad working so much and so long. In fact, I had this conversation with my stepson saying, you know what, I saw both his dad and myself working a business, and he said, I don't think I want the long hours that I've seen you guys put into. As a result, they tend to want to be productive. They want to know what's expected of them. They want to do the job and get on with their life. They want work. They want communication, relationships to be more informal. and they are motivated by time off. So in other words, rather than giving them extra pay as a result of their recent accomplishment, give them an afternoon or an hour or so off, because that's what matters most to them. They want the workplace to be a place with dynamic leadership. Doesn't necessarily have to mean that leadership is coming just from the person they report to, their boss. They want the opportunity to demonstrate their leadership skills as well. They want flexibility, and again, relating to time, they would like and appreciate a workplace where they could have a flexible schedule. We actually are all taking the afternoon off after we finish this webinar, and the whole value of having a flexible work week is important to that generation. They do appreciate direct communication. That's probably because they want focused communication that don't beat around the bush. Tell them what you need by when so they can be productive and a high performer. And then the last generation that is just entering the workplace are those millennials. And what they value is individuality. They have great confidence as they step into the workplace. They want to make a difference. They truly focus on standing out from the crowd, and as a result, they appreciate collaboration. They want to do what they do best, and they want to work with people that do their best, which really is which maximizes people's resources. They're motivated by intelligence. They want to know that who they are working with, whether it's their boss, whether it's their supervisor, whether it's their coworkers, are intelligent, and that can oftentimes mean in the workplace they want to feel challenged. You know, they want to know that we're a dynamic organization that are looking for better ways, faster ways to do things. They want to be respected even though they might not have the years of experience that others in the workplace do. And I'm always amazed at the recent millennials that have started their own businesses. You know, the Facebook entrepreneurs and the social media are typically the millennials. So when communicating with a millennial, you don't need to communicate face-to-face. They are very comfortable with text messaging, email communication. I know in our office we have a group text messaging system that we oftentimes will use to communicate quickly to each other. So if you want more information about this culture report, reach out to Dane afterwards and she'll be happy to send it to you. So let's now walk through what the 7 qualities of a collaborative culture are, starting with clarity. On the next page, we'll start with the definition. A culture that has clarity has goals that are set and achieved aligned with the mission, vision, and values as a part of an organization's strategic plan. For those of you who are familiar with strategic planning, it is an ongoing process. As you see here, the 4 key questions that we ask our clients to answer: where are we now, where are we going, how do we get there, and how are we doing? And each of those phases can be addressed ahead of time with a pre-planning questionnaire. So before we go in and facilitate strategic planning, we'll administer this, and the examples of the 7 questions are listed there on your handout, given to the entire planning team. Now, the planning team could be senior leadership, it could be the board of directors, it could be a combination of both groups. We ask for honest feedback anonymously so that people don't feel intimidated or they have full disclosure. And what we find when we compile the results in a summary, it accelerates the decision-making process. So one of the questions we ask is, what are the measures of your organization's success? What do you use dashboard to understand if you're succeeding or if you're struggling? SWOT analysis is another part of the process, but we also ask those questions on the pre-planning questionnaire. In other words, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing your organization? And then we want to know, how well do you feel your product or service is being received in the marketplace? And from all of that, we will then prioritize your top strategic issues. The process itself has 10 steps, and when I illustrate it or teach it, I use a pyramid intentionally because of the 4 levels. Also from the standpoint, the structure of a pyramid has a very solid foundation. So the very first question, where are we now, is typically where we spend a lot of time understanding where are we now. So we'll talk about planning to plan. When do we need to do the strategic planning? Does it make sense to do it at the end of the calendar year? Does it make sense to do it right before we start our budget process? All of these would be intentional decisions to align your strategic planning with either your calendar or your fiscal year. The second two are analyses. So the second step is to look at the external factors affecting your business, such as the competition, the marketplace, regulatory effects. Then internally, in the third step, takes a look at what's going on inside the organization. How are the employees? What's your financial situation? And then from all of those analyses, we draw a conclusion in step 4 with your top strategic issues. And we'll talk, and I'll give you examples of ours. The next question to address is where are we going? In step 5, the organization will either create or update your mission and vision statement. The 6th step, which is at the heart of the pyramid, is also at the heart of the organization. And that is, what is your philosophy as an organization? Or sometimes it's referred to as the values. What are those values that you believe important, that you want others to behave or interact with others? And then the conclusion of this phase or this step is to develop from the top strategic issues an action plan. So you're building more, I say you're putting the meat on the plan. The third question in the strategic planning process is to ask, how do we get there? Now that we know what we need to do, how and who is going to help us? So the 8th step is an intentional step of looking at how are we going to roll this process out, and how are we going to engage other people that can help us to implement these plans. And then step 9 is the actual follow through and monitoring the process happens in the 10th step. And this is an ongoing question that one of the best things that you need to do is incorporate your strategic plan on agendas of meetings, whether it's your board meetings, whether it's your senior management teams. We are intentional as we do our strategic planning at Inspiring Solutions to have quarterly updates. And so on Monday, we are having our third quarter's progress report, and we look at the issues that we have and what is our dashboard telling us on our progress. So let me do a couple things to kind of give you some examples of what we do in strategic planning. How many of you can state from memory what your mission statement is? And like we said earlier, we'd like for you to use the chat box and send it to all participants or all attendees. And I would, if I was face-to-face, give you a prize if you are the first one to type in. And if you don't know yours, I bet you know the police department. They are to serve and protect. And I talk about the mission statement because, oh, there we go, Christina. Ding, 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 we have a winner. Oh, Dana, good job. All right, let's read what Christina said. Christina's is to provide quality, compassionate care to the communities we serve. Oh, nice. Is that you? Do you work at Unity Point? It sounds like the one I just heard from Unity Point. The idea of a mission statement is that it should be a single statement that is easy to memorize and understand because it gives people clarity. Why do we work? What do we do? It distinguishes you from the competition. Oh, and I see that also John Miller has theirs as well, to enrich the lives of seniors by giving them an opportunity to serve as volunteers in the community. John, that sounds interesting. You are with, I'm trying to look at our roster here. John is with Monroe, you're with Monroe, Wapello, Jefferson counties. Awesome, thank you very much. So what is your mission, and more importantly, does everyone in your organization know it? I would say even have a contest to see who can do it. As you can tell, we have ingrained, in fact, we recently shortened our mission statement, and it's very simple, but it's very intentional. We want to enhance individual, team, and organizational performance. Now, the vision statement is also a single statement, It should be also easy to understand, stated, however, in future terms. The mission statement describes who you are and what you will do, but the vision statement should describe in a future state what you would like to be known as or for, recognized by either your company, the community, your state or area, or even within your industry. Our vision is that we will be nationally recognized as an invaluable resource for talent development. Being intentional, wanting to work with organizations around the country with the common element of talent development, which means we basically want to help employers improve their employees' performance. As I mentioned, our strategic process happens annually, and it does get revised as we go through different priorities. This particular year, we're looking at 5, managing the growing demand of our healthcare expertise, strengthening our client relations, promote our attitude brand and product line, increase our web sales, and the last is to honor the personal and professional development needs of our team. And then we put keywords out there at the front to help people remember. If we may not remember exactly what it stated, but we know that healthcare customers, attitudes, e-commerce, and teams are basically the essence of our focus. And every decision that we make in a given day should be aligned with one of those strategic issues. The second quality of a collaborative culture is code. So let's turn to the next page for a definition. Code means you have a process in place of hiring, firing, and managing performance that honors a certain code or certain standard of behavior. For instance, how many of you have in your policies and procedures, or maybe it's in your employee handbook, an employee standards of behavior? These are oftentimes called different things. Sometimes they're called code of conduct. I'll give you a couple of examples. But what they're doing is they are identifying key categories of behavior that are important to demonstrate when interacting with customers. So, for instance, maybe appearance is important to your workplace, and there's a definition of it. Behavior and respect might also be important. Another might be teamwork, and you can see the definition that they've created of what teamwork means to the organization. Commitment to customers, believing we provide excellent care with gentleness and kindness. And then a couple of others include communication and confidentiality. And the last is empowerment and ownership. So you would have these keywords, and then you'd have definitions, again, very specific, intentional sentences that describe what's expected of employees. This is another example of a client that uses SERVE as an acronym to remember what their standards are, and that is service, enthusiasm, respect, value, and excellence. Another example of a client that I work with out in Oregon has a 2-part process, and they created this beautiful infograph that, using ICARE as the acronym, it stands for integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence. For each of those terms, you'll see on the background the definition of what that means. So integrity means being honest, truthful, accurate in my assessment and delivery of healthcare to the public. And then in the foreground, the second part or second back half of this document gives more of the behaviors in action. So it talks about integrity means I will be responsible and follow through with my promises, be productive while on duty, and be honest and fair in all that I do. Now that's the first step, because I want to make sure that those are current and up to date. The second part is to make sure that they are utilized. For instance, when you interview, you might be referring to them, so your questions might be searching past experience on behaviors such as what you're wanting to model in the workplace. Definitely as a part of the new employee orientation, you should make sure that all of your new employees understand what the expectation is, kind of like your play rules, how you want people to play at work or how you want them to behave. And then also on an annual basis during your performance review, I will encourage or recommend that you align your code of conduct or whatever you call your standards of behavior as a part of the way in which you manage your employees. These can be very specific, concrete, subjective measures, asking at the end of the evaluation for people, employees, to re-sign their commitment. To start the process and working with the client, we like to understand a little bit about those 7 qualities. So we have created a culture assessment that we use to benchmark your culture in those 7 areas affecting the health and effectiveness of your workplace. And the questions are listed there on your handout. You'll see for each of the 7 qualities, there are 4 or 5 different indicators that we ask you to rate on a scale of 1 being never, 2 sometimes, 3 usually, and 4 always. We will then assess and populate results or reports, which is on the next page. And I want to reach out to Sarah, who's been our intern for over the last year, for putting all of this data together. In your handout, you've got a sample of the report, but we also gave you an opportunity to test out what the online assessment tool looks like. And she actually populated the number of the report, and it's listed here on the slide. So what you'll be given back is a summary report that lists for each of the 7 qualities an average. So for instance, in this culture analysis, Clarity scored a 2.9, which on the scale of 1 to 1.9 being low, 2 to 2.9 being moderate, fits right at the border of moderate to high, which is 3 to 4 points. And then at the bottom of the culture analysis summary report, you'll see the greatest strength was creativity, and your greatest growth opportunity would be in the area of celebration. So what we will offer as a result of you participating in this month's webinar is a culture assessment at no cost. All you need to do is reach out to us, and we'll schedule a call and talk to you a little bit more about the administrative part of it. But if you would like us to administer this to your entire organization, or maybe it's just to a department or two, let us know, and we'd be happy to give you that kind of experience that can really be beneficial to understand the health and effectiveness of your organization. All right, so moving on to the 3rd quality. The 3rd quality is creativity. By definition, that is when you bring into any idea that is new to you or to the organization or department. So let's talk about why innovation or creativity is important. All right. John Nesbitt wrote a book called Megatrends, and he said that in times of great change like we are in now, we are in the most need of creativity and innovation. Einstein said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, yet expecting different results. So in other words, if you want to grow your market share, if you want to improve your customer satisfaction, if you want to better engage your employees or reduce your employee turnover, you've got to look at what you're doing and make some changes. How creative do you feel you are? We have a workshop program called Opportunity or Creativity is Now Here. And one of the exercises to exercise the brain is listed on your worksheet. So if you'd like to, after this webinar, feel free to test your CQ, which means creativity quotient. And you use a scale of 3 to 0 and understand if you are curious, if you're a risk taker. I would say go with your first thoughts, because that's typically the most accurate. And then total up your score, and depending on your range of score, can indicate how creative you are. Now, regardless of your score, I do want you to know about a study. There was a study done with 2 different work groups, those that thought they were creative and those that thought they were not. They looked at their background, where they grew up, where they went to school, what they do in their free time, everything about them, and tried to draw some degree of commonality. And at the conclusion of the study, they realized that there really was not any significant behavioral difference. However, the only difference between those that thought they were and those that thought they were not was their mere thought. So do you have an attitude, or do you believe you are creative? Because if you believe you are, you will demonstrate your creativity. So to help you with your awareness or your emotional intelligence on creativity, I have a list on this slide that gives you all kinds of different things. And if you've ever done any one of those, or if you've done a lot of those, you are creative. Okay? Because when was the last time you scheduled or you hosted a party, whether it was a graduation party, birthday party, planned a wedding? I know Sarah's planning her upcoming wedding. Done a project or a puzzle. I like to do Sudoku. It's a way to kind of continually tap into your creativity and your mind, your brain. If you have a garden, whether it's a flower garden or planting a vegetable garden, that's demonstrating and you are creative. So when you think about yourself as creative, now I want you to think and believe that you are. Let's have some fun with a couple more exercises. I always like to exercise the brain. I think it's because my mom has had Alzheimer's. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years back with it. So I am very aware of your brain health. So what do you see on this illustration? Did you first see the man's face with what looks like glasses looking downward? Or if you tilt your head to the right slightly, did you see a word? And if so, it's written in cursive, which I am understanding that kids today aren't being taught cursive writing, but I think it's coming back because I think there was too many people that were complaining about it. You might see the word liar. So 2 ways of looking at the exact same thing, practicing your creativity. Here's another fun exercise. Read the sentence and count the number of F's. And again, in the chat box, if you would, type in the box, the blue border box, the number you saw. All right, ooh, somebody's good. I know Dana sometimes types in on behalf of others. I know Dana knows this exercise. Oh, Margaret, 3, okay. Well, most likely, like Margaret, how many of you first saw the 3? Those that came from the word finished, filed, and scientific. That's because your brain heard the F. However, there's also 3 more F's. So the correct answer is 6, coming from 3 words of. And the reason that our brain didn't equate the of because it had the V sound. Here's another fun exercise that I like to tap into your creativity. Somewhere in a blank sheet of paper, draw these 9 dots, 3 up, 3 down, and the exercise or the challenge is to connect the dots using 4 straight lines without lifting your pen or pencil. All right, Dana, I think, is chiming in saying that she really didn't know the answer. She was just typing in from somebody else. Or she picked it up from the 9 o'clock hour. Kidding. All right, so I'm going to give you a hint. You may have heard the term think outside the box, or I think it's Taco Bell saying think outside the bun. And that's important because most likely as you are trying to solve this problem, you are staying within the border of the 9 dots. However, if you think outside the boundary, you will be able to solve the problem. For instance, line 1, going through the first 3 dots. The next is the determining factor. So if you go outside the boundary of the 9 dots and then come through and continue to go outside, you'll be able to come back up and successfully draw 4 lines through the 9 dots. But so many times we put implied barriers or boundaries on our work or our perspective. All right, here's another fun exercise. Many of you have probably seen this logo. It's a company that moves things forward. Maybe you've gotten a box from a shipment from them, or maybe you've seen it on the side of their truck. They have cleverly embedded an image within their logo that communicates that they move things forward. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It is between the letter E and the X, the arrow. Now, many of you, if you've not ever seen that before, will now, each time you see it, your eye will go towards that implied or hidden symbol. So where does all this creativity fit into the workplace? When we teach process improvement, helping people understand that you need to identify and resolve problems, or you need to think about being creative in better solving the customer's frustrations. We teach 4 different key questions. The first question is, what if? So you've got a problem and you're not quite sure how to fix it. Well, you use the what if question that says, well, what if we threw out a limit of time or money? What would you do? How would you fix it? What would you like to see happen? Another question to promote creativity is, how is this like ... another business? So it could be, how is our customer's experience like a hospital or a hotel? Or how is this product like, I'm just seeing the guy pick up my garbage. How is this like a garbage can? So you think about drawing some similarities and applications with a business, a product, or a solution. The third is an acronym that I like to use when I teach brainstorming. Brainstorming is a great way to get a group to collaborate in a collective, focused manner. Starting off using a flip chart page, IWWCW, which is an acronym that stands for In What Ways Can We? And then you can fill in the blank with whatever the problem is. So in what ways can we meet our deadline? So in what ways can we improve our patient satisfaction? In what ways can we reduce our employee turnover? And then the ultimate question is what I think the power question. And that is the most popular question that kids ask parents to learn. And somehow through our years, we forget to ask ourselves or a team, why? You know, why are we doing it this way? And we just had this conversation between our first and this webinar of why we had a particular setting in the webinars. And so many times we do things just because it's the way we've always been doing it. Well, if it doesn't make sense, you need to learn to break the mold, break the habit, and improve factors that will improve the outcome. All right, the fourth quality of a cohesive culture is that of consistency. Consistency is when you are using proactive behavior on a regular basis to promote a desired outcome. It's truly when you are hardwiring best practices. So let's take a look at why consistency is important in the workplace. First of all, it eliminates surprises. You know, you come to work and you pretty much know what you're supposed to be doing because you have a routine. It streamlines on a daily basis the number of decisions you have to make because you always do things, or you always send an email, or your format of your templates always are basically the same. This then helps you be more efficient, and it can reduce errors. All of this from an employee perspective delivers a much better customer experience. So just as employees aren't surprised when they come to work, customers aren't surprised whether they come on a Monday or a Friday to do work with you, whether they come into your office or hospital at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. on the weekends. They're going to get basically the same results. So let me give you kind of an example of a generic organization's consistency. How many of you have ever dined at or through the drive-up at Chick-fil-A? And it's been my experience, whether I'm in Des Moines or whether I was recently in Timbuktu, that once I've ordered my meal, given them my money, gotten the change, they then in turn have given me the food, kind of in that sequence very consistently. But after they give me the bag or they give me the tray of food and I say thank you, it's been my experience that I always hear that employee say, my pleasure. And I'd like for you to tell me or type in the chat box if that's been your experience as well. My theory is that it's not just by chance. It's not just by accident that that's how that particular employee or those 10 employees that have helped me have done. Ooh, John, you've never had that happen at Chick-fil-A. Ooh, they may need to have some improved communication or training. because that is something that I believe as an organization, they have hardwired, or obviously they've tried to hardwire as, oh, you've never been there. Okay, John, well, I would encourage you to go there and see if you've had the same consistent experience. Where this comes from is intentional behavior. And I truly believe service excellence doesn't happen just with good luck. It happens because you make intentional decisions and it leads to intentional behavior. But what is the intention behind being intentional? And that's kind of answering the question why. Why should we be intentional? First of all, the definition of intentional is that when you do something on purpose or deliberate. Other words might be calculated, conscious, intended, meant, studied, willful, pre-planned, or preconceived. The applications of intentional action, first we'll start with some athletic examples. If any of you have ever watched a basketball game, sometimes the coach has a team foul intentionally, typically towards the end of the game because they want to stop the clock. They want to have a huddle, they want to talk about what's going on, or maybe they want the person at the free throw line to think about their the chances and potentially miss the basket. I'm excited about going to Chicago this weekend for my birthday because we're going to go watch the Cubs play the Cardinals. But in baseball, the pitcher might intentionally walk the batter because they might hit a home run, or there's people on base and they don't want to score a run. And some of you might be familiar with a concept or a book about intentional living, living your life on purpose for a purpose. I want to use that same application in the workplace because I think it's so important for a collaborative culture. So to teach this, what I do is I have small groups create a list of things that they always do at home or at work on an hourly basis. So many of you probably are constantly checking your phone or checking your computer's email. On a daily basis, I'm sure, or at least I hope, everyone brushes their teeth at least once, if not twice a day. It's something that you always do. On a weekly basis, maybe you are in such a routine that you always, in fact, always go grocery shopping on Saturdays, which you find everybody else is doing. So my suggestion is to change it up. I tend to shop on Friday night or Sunday nights because I find that the stores aren't quite as crowded. The only drawback is that sometimes fresh vegetables and fruits are a little bit picked over. But what are the things that you're doing on a weekly basis? Monthly basis could be not only paying your bills, but I have a reminder that pops up the first day of every month to change my furnace filter or my air conditioner filter. And then what is it that you always do on a yearly basis? Celebrate birthdays, celebrate anniversaries. Maybe you make sure that you always change your battery in your smoke detectors. But those are examples of intentional behaviors that you always do. Some best practices that I picked up along the way, both personally and professionally. These were examples when my mom had her knee replaced at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. But I saw that they had actually posters around the hospital talking about intentional rounding. And I thought this is a brilliant demonstration of something, a behavior that healthcare needs to commit to. And they even describe why we do it. We do it regularly to make sure that your room is clean and tidy, but we also do it to help ensure we meet your needs. And at each visit, you'll be asked about your pain, your restroom needs, your position, and if there's anything else that they can help you with during your stay. This builds up an expectation not only of patients and their family members to not get irritated that somebody's always stopping in to check your vitals to make you comfortable, but I think it also builds up a culture expectation for nurses and doctors and even housekeepers to know that we need to make sure that we're continually honoring that promise. And then the other best practice on the right-hand side is a communication tool that they oftentimes put into patients' rooms called whiteboards. It's a way that there are, and you can see that there are some consistent pieces of information pre-printed on that whiteboard. So what room number, phone number is always on that whiteboard. And then off to the left-hand side is what I call a template. So you'll always put the date, you'll always mark the nurse's name, who the PCA is, what the diet is, any restrictions, activities or goals, ICE, etc. So that's an example of consistent communication in a whiteboard. Other examples of things in your workplace that you must do as an employee, and they might be things that are absolutes, or you might call them non-negotiables, is that whenever you're walking by someone, you must greet them, by name, or at least say hi. Pick up trash. I don't think it's just housekeeping or the janitorial staff. It's responsibility to keep the place clean. If you make a mess, pick it up. Washing their hands. How many of you have ever been into a public restroom in a grocery store or a store? They oftentimes have a sign posted by the sink, because if it's where the employees also use, as they always need to wash their hands before coming back to work. Other standards might be using keywords at key times, kind of like the Chick-fil-A, my pleasure. You might have a standard of how you want people to answer the phone. Thank you for calling Inspiring Solutions. This is Michelle. How may I help you? The fifth culture, or fifth quality of a culture that we would assess is that of coaching. To what degree do you have a culture in which you are developing people to achieve a specific personal or professional goal by providing training and guidance? And this really takes a look at in what ways are you promoting and recognizing what they're doing well, and also what could they be doing differently. The benefit of coaching is that it really helps promote peak performance. During an honest 8-day of work, you need to make sure that you are maximizing your employees' productivity. It, however, is impacted by people's willingness to coach. I think that there might be a correlation between disciplining and coaching. I don't think that people like to discipline because it sounds negative. Even when you hear the word, you might think, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. But when you think about the purpose of disciplining, it is that to change or improve behavior. Now, when you think about coaching someone, that sounds and even feels much more engaging or much more positive. And that also has the same purpose of disciplining. You want to change or improve behavior. So the first thing that I would coach you, if you have to coach someone, is to think of yourself as someone who wants to help others reach their fullest potential. No one's perfect, and I truly believe people like knowing what they're doing well as what they should do differently. To do that, I think that a culture needs to have trust. And in our 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, we coach people and teams to have what's called vulnerability-based trust, which means that you are willing to say, I don't know, I missed a deadline, or I need your help. Because the word vulnerable means helpless, defenseless, powerless, weak, and susceptible. So you really have to be transparent when you're willing to admit to yourself and others that you didn't do something that you were supposed to do. To kind of break the ice, when we teach vulnerability-based trust, is this exercise that I thought you might enjoy this afternoon or this morning, and that is, what are you willing to admit? You may or may not have gotten caught or in trouble, but of these 20 items, which have you experienced? And adding up the numbers and reporting out. Mine is 190. And this is a fun exercise that whether you've done it twice or 20 times, you just get that value. But again, this is a fun way to get people to realize that we all have done things that others have either done or gotten caught in. You may have heard the cliche, one bad apple can ruin the whole bunch. So as we deal with attitudes and actions in the workplace, we have created a 5-step process to help people deal with the difficult attitudes of others. So let me give you the answers to that fill in the blank. The first step is to make sure that you determine whether or not it's worth your while to get involved or not. If it's an employee, if it's an employee that you manage, if it's a coworker, or maybe it's even a child or someone in your family that's important to you, you need to get involved. The second then is to understand why they did or didn't do what they did. So the key there is to ask good questions, to understand and not assume, because sometimes we usually think the worst. Once you've understood why they did what they did or didn't, you can then influence their attitude by saying, well, did you realize that if you continue to miss those deadlines, what that's going to do to the project? Or if they said something that hurt someone's feelings, let them see the big picture. Once you've agreed that there is a problem, you need to resolve it. And the key to any problem resolution is clear expectations. I would encourage you to make sure that you are clear with defining what you expected, because sometimes we're not very clear. We give kind of very loose or just do it type of instructions. And then the last step in dealing with a difficult or coaching someone is to recover and go on. Now, maybe there were some things that were shared that weren't quite pleasant, but if you can have what we call a meaningful conversation or productive conflict, you'll be able to recover and go on. Speaking of conflict, and that is one of the challenges in today's workplace because of so many differences, the sixth is to make sure that you honor people's opinions, especially if they have strong emotions. David Richo's quote, "To be adult in relationships is to not be conflict-free. It's to resolve conflicts mindfully." And the reason that I chose that quote is that you need to realize that conflict is inevitable and does promote productive resolution. Conflict itself is not bad, but how you deal with it might be. It is impacted by your thoughts, beliefs, and behavior. And a lot of times we have conflict in our organization, and luckily through our training and our experience of working together, this happens to be Dana, for those of you who don't know Dana. Dana and I made a road trip, and she thought and she recommended that I fill up my tank of gas before we leave, but I thought, oh no, we can make it. Well, I should have taken her advice because we did not. We ran out of gas. We had a little bit of conflict. We worked through it, and I do want to thank her publicly for not leaving me behind and making me walk home. Similar types of conflicts might also be at work and at home, things like dealing with schedules or accountability. I think those are two common challenges that we face both at work and at home. And we oftentimes struggle with conflict because of our personality styles. It could be our biases, it could be our fear. So we use an online assessment tool from the family of Everything DISC tools. Some of you might be familiar with those that are listed on the left-hand side. In fact, we're going to introduce the 363 for Leaders next month at our webinar. But the one that we want, this is the newest, is Productive Conflict. And it teaches using DISC that given the style that you are, people that are high D use logic and victory in conflict. Those that are high I's use expression and feelings. Those that are high S want steadiness, so they focus on the feelings and consensus building. And if you're a high C, you focus on justice and logic. There are both destructive tendencies as well as teaching you productive tendencies, because conflict is good and healthy because you're both able to be honest. What I like about this tool is it teaches conflict from the inside out. Like I mentioned, the power question, why? It addresses why you might argue, why you might belittle, why you might cave in, why you might be defensive, or why might you dismiss opinions. And there's, I think, 3 specific pages that describe why you might be using a destructive style or approach to conflict. Then what we do is we teach in part 3, how do you change your automatic thought, reframe to a more productive response. And I would encourage you to think about bringing this to your workplace if your team does not deal with conflict well. We have, as a part of our training, created our team's promise, and this helps us understand how we will communicate and resolve conflict, whether it be in meetings or in a face-to-face situation. Another fun that's kind of, I call it a code in healthcare. You guys have different codes. You could use Q-tip as a code word when you're in a conversation with someone who is taking it personally. So Q-tip stands for quit taking it personally, because so many times, especially women, have a hard time resolving conflict because they think it's a personal attack. It's not. When it's at work, it's about production. It's about performance, about a product or project. And then the last quality of a collaborative culture is that of celebration, making sure that you recognize and reward individuals, teams, and organizations for succeeding. I think it's important to have some fun in the workplace. We have a home-based business, and I have 2 dogs, so guess what? My dogs come to work with us every day. Bulletin boards is another way to recognize and celebrate birthdays. This happens to be an example at Wilson Medical Center where they have the 4 pillars, and they promote or they announce what they're doing or how they've scored in their performance reviews and how they've, not performance reviews, in their HCAHPS, patient satisfaction surveys. I would hope that you have some kind of newsletter. It doesn't have to be long. I think you just have to be consistent in making sure that you use it to communicate. Again, using things to recognize or spotlight people, birthdays, anniversaries, projects that are completed, upcoming events. And you can't beat a good old-fashioned compliment to recognize and celebrate people's accomplishments. Think opportunities to say thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for telling us your story or your situation. Thank you even for bringing us your problems, because we can help improve things. This is the best way of celebrating and sharing your success, which breeds success. So in closing, I chose one that I want to challenge you with is how collaborative is your culture? Collaboration divides the task and multiplies the success. And if you would like to bring this assessment and process into your organization, we've given you 2 different descriptions that outline it. We're happy to give you more information if you want to schedule a conference call with anyone in your organization who can help make that decision. Reach out to us and we'll be happy to tell you a little bit more about that. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to call or email us directly. And I want to also invite you to next month's webinar. As I mentioned, August 17th, we're going to be using or introducing you to one of the other Everything Disc profiles. It's a 360-degree instrument where you as a leader can get feedback from other people on your team that report to you, as well as peers and even your boss. So we'll be talking about that as a visionary resource. And do know that we appreciate your feedback. As you close out of this webinar today, you'll be asked to share some comments and suggestions for improving this process. But I want to thank you on behalf of our team for joining us, making this a priority, and being intentional in learning about the 7 qualities of a collaborative culture. So thank you. Make it a great day for yourself and others, and we look forward to having you be a part of our future webinars.